afternoon, good evening, everybody. It's good to see you. I know I'm seeing you through a screen and you're looking at me on a screen, but it's good to see you. I hope that you guys have had a good day. I hope that most of you watching this have just gotten off of our Zoom class where we got together over a computer or a phone or a tablet screen and just got to catch up with one another and play some games. If you missed out on that and you want to be a part of future ones, make sure your family reaches out to me and lets me know so we can include you on that in the future. So I hope that you watched Sunday's lesson where Miss Kendra talked to you guys about a man named Abram in the Bible and the faith that he had in God. That was a pretty silly video. I really liked her skit she did with her mustache. But if you remember back to last week, on Wednesday, we talked about the story of Jesus resurrecting or coming back to life after he died on the cross. And today we're going to continue talking about what happened after Jesus came back to life, because that story's not quite finished yet, okay? So I have a question for you guys. Have you ever heard of the story of Doubting Thomas? I can't remember the last time we talked about this story in church, but it's kind of a common phrase. Sometimes I've heard people say to someone maybe who's a doubter or doesn't believe in something, saying, "Oh, you're being such a doubting Thomas." Have you guys ever heard about that? Today's lesson, we're going to be reading about the man who earned the nickname Doubting Thomas in the Bible. He was one of Jesus's friends, and he had a hard time believing that Jesus really did come back to life. That's what today's story is about. I'm going to be reading from John chapter 20, and I'm going to be reading you the story. It's not the actual Bible verses. It's a more just kind of a condensed, different version of the story. I'm going to put it on the screen, but if you want to read this from your Bible along with me or after, it's again John chapter 20, and it's verses 19 through 31. Okay, so follow along on the screen. One night, some of Jesus's friends were eating together in a house. They were very sad. Their friend Jesus had been killed 3 days ago. They knew Jesus's body was not in the tomb. They had heard people say they had seen Jesus and he was alive. But some of them were having a hard time believing that Jesus was really alive. As the friends were talking, Jesus came into the room. Jesus' friends were surprised and a little afraid. How could this be Jesus? He was supposed to be dead. Jesus must have smiled at them. "Why are you afraid?" Jesus asked. Jesus held out his hands so his friends could see the hurt places on them. Then Jesus asked for something to eat. When the friends saw Jesus and heard his kind voice, they knew he was really alive. The friends were not afraid anymore. This was really Jesus. But Jesus' friend named Thomas was not there when Jesus came. Later, Jesus' other friends told Thomas that Jesus was alive, but Thomas shook his head. Thomas told the friends, "I will not believe that Jesus is alive unless I see him and touch him." A week later, all the friends and Thomas were together in the same house again. Suddenly, Jesus came into the room, just as he had done before. Jesus knew that Thomas still didn't believe he was really alive. Jesus must have smiled at Thomas. "Thomas," Jesus said, "look at my hands. Touch them. I want you to know that I am alive." Thomas loved Jesus. He looked at Jesus and said, "My Lord and my God." Now Thomas knew for sure that Jesus is alive, and he was very glad. Now I want you guys to think for a second. Maybe you want to write these down or share them with your family or whoever you're watching this video with. What questions do you have about this story? Could be about anything. It could be about Thomas or Jesus or about the Bible in general, maybe about Jesus's other disciples or friends. What questions do you have? I have some here that I thought of. How big was the room they were in? Was it the same room where they had the Last Supper? They only mentioned that men were in the room. Were there any women? How tall were the men and how many were there? Were they quiet or were they talking? What color eyes did Thomas have? Now, those might seem like silly questions to you, and some of them are kind of silly, but just things I was wondering when I was reading the story that maybe they don't say or tell us. But it's important that you guys know that it's always okay to have questions. In fact, there are many times in the Bible where Jesus welcomed questions and was happy to answer them, because questions mean that we're learning and we're curious about God. And I don't know if you've ever heard this before, maybe at school or when we were at church. Have you ever heard anybody say, "Oh, I have a silly question"? And I know it's kind of cliche that people say, but there are no silly questions. Thomas had questions. He had doubts about seeing Jesus. He wanted to experience it for himself. So I don't want you guys to ever feel bad or feel silly about having questions. Questions are okay, and we should never be afraid to ask a teacher a question. Most importantly, not Jesus. Okay, I have a little guessing game for you guys. Are you up for it? Let's see. So down here, I have a box. It's just a box, some of my favorite drinks from the store, okay? Now pay attention to the size of the box, because in this box, I have an object that I want you guys to guess, okay? So it has to fit in this box, and I'll give you a hint. I got it from my kitchen, okay? So you might think of the size of the object, the color of the object. Do you have some guesses in your head? Maybe it's something you can eat. Maybe it's something you can't. I don't know. What are your guesses? Share them with the people you're watching this with. Now I'm going to go in the box. I'm going to feel it, feel the object, describe it to you guys. It's kind of long. Long. It's got some kind of grooves on it. It's kind of smooth, a little bit. Skinny. Not really squishy. It's not a certain temperature or anything. Do you have any guesses? Do you need some more hints? I'll give you a hint. It is something you can eat, okay? It's a food. It's from my kitchen. Maybe if I shake the box. Does it sound heavy or light? Okay. Let's see if I can describe it a little more. So I said it's smooth, but on the ends, they're kind of rougher, pricklier. All right, I'll give you one final hint, and then you got to make your final guess. It's yellow. Do you have a guess? Say it now. It's a banana. Did you guess it right? I tried not to make it too hard. Could have made it really difficult and not told you what room from my house the object was from, but I bet most of you guys got it. I figured the yellow would give it away. But the point of this guessing game is that sometimes we feel like we need to experience something for ourselves before we can believe it. If somebody came inside my house right now and told me that they saw a dinosaur walking down the street, I'm probably not going to believe them unless I walk outside and see it myself. Or maybe they say, "Oh, there's a fire truck. There's a fire truck up the street." But if I don't hear the sirens, if I don't see the lights flashing, I'm probably not going to believe them, right? Sometimes we want to experience it for ourselves. And that's how Thomas felt in this story. He had all his friends and some other people saying they had seen Jesus after he died on the cross. But he wanted to see it and experience it for himself before he believed. Sometimes we can't experience things for ourselves. But unlike Thomas, we can trust and have faith in God that it's true because of many things, like our past experience, like reading stories in the Bible that are proof of what God's done, hearing other people's stories of what God has done. We can have faith, just like Abraham on Sunday you learned had faith. We can have faith in God that he's going to keep his promises to us and that we can believe the things he's done are true. So I want to take some time to say a prayer. I want to pray for each of you, that especially right now during this time that is a little scary, and we don't know what's next. We don't know when we're going to be able to go back to normal again. I just want to pray that you guys would trust God and trust that He's going to take care of us. And when other things come up in your life, or maybe you're having a hard time believing, having a hard time that maybe God is going to bring something good out of it, or maybe that He's going to take care of you, that you would trust Him based on what you read in the Bible and based on how He's taken care of you and kept His promises to you in the past. So go ahead and bow your heads, and while I'm praying to Jesus out loud, I want you guys to be talking to Him as well. Dear Lord, we just thank you so much for this lesson today. We thank you for the story of Thomas, God, and that it reminds us that we have plenty of proof in our lives, in the lives around us, in the history of the world, God, of what you've done for us, and how we can trust that you're going to do what you said you would, that you're going to take care of us, and that you are truly the God of the universe who is capable of anything. And I just pray for each of these children, God, as they go about their week, as they go through the rest of this school year at home, maybe the rest of the school year without getting to return to church, that you would just be with them and that they would trust you, that you would be their source of hope, of peace and calmness during this time, and that they would have faith that you are always going to take care of them, and that they would have that faith and that trust even when they don't feel like they're experiencing it, God. So just pray that you would be with them, be with their families, and help us to trust you every day. We love you so much. Amen. Okay, for this next part, I'm going to show you a craft. You probably won't be able to see my face, but you just need to see my hands and what we're going to do, okay? So all you need for this craft is a piece of paper. You're going to need a pair of scissors, a pen or a pencil, some sort of marker, and maybe a crayon or colored pencils or markers or whatever, a color of your choice. You're going to be drawing a heart, so if you want to do red, that works too. I chose purple because that is my favorite color. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take a regular piece of printer paper. You can use colored paper if you want. You're going to fold it in half the long way. Okay? Just fold it in half. Doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. And then this is important to pay attention to. The side where you made the fold, that's where your thumb and your pointer finger are going to go. Okay, so your thumb and your pointer finger, you're going to put them on the paper, and they need to be on that side. I'm going to take my watch off. It's going to be in the way. Okay, so the side where the fold is, you're going to put your hand on that side. You're going to go ahead and take the pen and trace your hand. Don't trace your wrist. Put your hand up as high as you can on the paper, probably. And just trace your hand and your fingers. All right, so there's your hand. And you know what? I probably wanted to put my pointer finger a little bit closer, but that's okay. And then at the bottom of your hand, you're gonna draw a rectangle, maybe a little thicker. It's okay if you mess up because you can always write on the other side. I'm gonna make a rectangle that goes all the way to the folded edge again, okay? So then you're gonna cut. Now it's really important that you don't cut the side you folded, because what you're gonna do is you're gonna cut both sides and open it, and it'll be double, kind of like if you cut out a heart. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this. And then when you get down here to the rectangle, you're just gonna cut around it. Again, do not cut the fold. I'll show you what we're gonna do here along the fold line. So you're gonna keep the rectangle intact. You're just gonna cut out this little part between the rectangle and the side of your thumb like this. Make sure you can see that. Okay, so then when you open it up, you have two hands with a rectangle at the bottom, okay? So then for this next part, what you're going to do first is you're going to draw a heart in the middle of both of your palms. And this is going to symbolize the holes Jesus had in his hands. So remember in our story, when Thomas saw Jesus, he said, look at the wounds in my hands. Those wounds in Jesus' hands were from when he was nailed to the cross. He had nails in his hands. So Thomas could see those wounds and know that it was really Jesus. Now, we'll test my ability to draw upside down. Okay? So these are the wounds in Jesus' hands. And then on the bottom along the rectangle, you're going to write a verse from this story. And I'm going to have to turn it around to write it, but then I'll turn it for you guys to see. So this is what you're going to write along the bottom. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe. John 20:29. So if you remember, our story was from John chapter 20. And this is what Jesus says to Thomas. Blessed are those who have not seen and believe. That's exactly what we were talking about. That we can still have faith in Jesus and what he's done and what he's going to do for us without experiencing it ourselves. So a game that you guys can play at home that goes with this lesson is a card game actually called I Doubt It. So you can play this game with a regular deck of cards, or you could play it with Uno cards if you don't have these, or if you'd prefer to play with Uno. And what you're going to do is you need at least 3 players, and you're going to take the entire deck of cards and you're going to deal them out to everybody. So there'll be no cards left. Everyone will get the same amount of cards. And you're going to go in a circle, taking turns discarding cards in a middle discard pile. And the first person who starts, you can choose them however they want. They're going to start with aces. And you guys are going to go around going up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way through king. Then once you get to kings, you start over again at aces. So when it's your turn to lay cards down, say you're the first person and you're aces, you're going to have your hand. And if you have aces, you can lay them down. You say how many you have. So say I have 2 aces, say 2 aces. But if I don't have any aces, or whatever card I am, or I only have 1, but I want to get rid of more cards, you can fib and say, 2 aces, or 1 ace, and maybe it's not 1 at all, okay? Then the other players have a chance to say, and they could say, I doubt it, and then you have to show your cards, and if you were not telling the truth, you have to take all the cards in the middle. If you were telling the truth, then the person who said, I doubt it, has to take all of the cards. The whole point of the game is to get rid of all your cards first, so you don't want to take the extra cards in the middle. So you go around and you have to tell people whether you believe them or if you doubt it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to tonight's lesson. I hope that you enjoyed it and learned something new or confirmed what you believe about God, and that you know that you can have faith in what he's going to do for us, what he's promised us, even if you don't feel like you're experiencing it yourself. I hope that you do this craft in the game. You could even do the box activity with your family at home. And use it to help you remind you of this lesson and to put it in your mind so that you know it. This would be a perfect verse to memorize and have kind of in your back pocket to pull out when maybe you feel like you're not experiencing the promises of God. We love you guys. We're praying for you, and we'll see you on Sunday.